Welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Podcast, show number 23.
It's time for a new American dream, one that doesn't involve working in a cubicle for 40 years, barely scraping by. Whether you're looking to get your financial house in order, invest the money you already have, or discover new paths for wealth creation, you're in the right place. This show is for anyone who has money or wants more. This is the BiggerPockets Money Podcast.
How's it going, everybody? I'm Scott Trench. I'm here with my co-host, Miss Mindy Jensen. How are you doing today, Mindy?
Scott, I am doing fabulously. The sun is shining, the birds are chirping, and for the next 5 minutes or so, it's not going to rain. So life is pretty good over here. How about you?
I am doing great. I'm excited for today's episode. We have a great young couple. Do you want to tell us a little bit about them?
So on today's episode, we have an example of a young couple who have just kind of made smart decisions their whole life with an eye towards the future and what the future could hold. Becky and Noah shared their journey to financial independence. They chose employable college degrees, financing college through full-ride scholarships. They earned high salaries and maximized their savings rate. Pretty much everything you are supposed to do with FI, they did. And now they are 27 years old. They are 3 months into a gap year after quitting their jobs to travel around the country and just kind of enjoy themselves and see what it's like to be 27 with no cares in the world. And I really enjoy talking to them. They are way farther ahead on their journey than I ever was at age 27. And it's nice to see people who are thinking ahead.
Yeah, what I think the power of this episode is this is the why. This is why you just make basic, solid, correct choices throughout your life, over the course of a decade or so, and set yourself up for a lifestyle that is really unmatchable. These guys are living the dream. They're doing exactly what they want, when they want, where they want, all over the country, visiting friends and family, cool places, having fun, relaxing when they want to, and that's why you do it. That's you set yourself up for FI so that you can have that option, right? And they're hardworking folks, and I bet you they're gonna go right back within a year or two and begin changing the world in a way that is unique to them and within their kind of constraints and abilities, and they're gonna go after it, and they have the complete freedom to do so on their terms when they're ready. This is why you do it.
Yes, that's a really good description of the show.
Mindy, should we bring in Becky and Noah?
Yes, please.
Becky and Noah, welcome to the BiggerPockets Money Show. How's it going?
Good. Thank you for having us.
Great. Same.
Well, let's go ahead and start right from the beginning of your journey. How did you guys meet, and then how did you get started on your kind of journey to financial independence?
So it all kind of ties in together. So we met in college, and the reason we met is that we both got the same full ride scholarship to college. So that was at Purdue University, and the full ride is called the Chick Evans Scholarship that we got for being golf caddies. So we both caddied at our respective country clubs, me from Indiana and her from Illinois, and caddied for at least 6+ years. And then had good grades in high school, had some financial need for our families, and were able to get full tuition and housing scholarships to college, which is where we met. So it's very, very magical in that way.
So you're basically saying that this golf caddy scholarship allowed you to kind of graduate from a really prestigious university, both of you, without any debt. Is that more or less the story there?
No, that's correct. Yeah.
That's awesome.
and what was your work when you graduated?
So I have a nursing degree. So I worked in labor and delivery for the past 5 years.
So I graduated with a degree in computer engineering, which is about half computer hardware, half computer software. But I really love the software side a lot more. So I ended up getting a job in Seattle, working at Amazon. So complete computer science job. But that was amazing, and that's the reason we moved across the country from Purdue. So we're both from the Midwest. Purdue's in the Midwest, and then we both moved all the way across the country to Seattle, one for the great job opportunity, and that allowed us to earn and save a ton of money, which set us pretty aggressively forward on the path to financial independence.
So how much were you guys earning and saving out of college, and how much were you able to accumulate over the last couple of years? How were you able to live cheaply in Seattle as well? That's a pretty expensive place.
I think that we both grew up pretty frugally. Like, we just have never naturally wanted to spend money. So that was just a big bonus for us. I don't know, what would you say for income?
So like out of college, I got the big tech job. Becky was able to find a nursing job in Seattle not long after we moved there. And combined, we were making about $150,000, like out of college, which is amazing. Like we're very fortunate for that to be possible. But yeah, as Becky said, we were fairly naturally frugal. I mean, we just kind of kept the college lifestyle going after we moved to Seattle. And at first, because we didn't know about FI at the time, we didn't really have a purpose for what we were saving money for, but we were saving money already. So that put us way ahead.
So when did you kind of discover the concept of FI? Like when did that, and was there a change that you made maybe when you discovered that?
So when we first discovered FI, it was about a year after we moved to Seattle. I actually found the financial independence subreddit on Reddit. I believe they made the personal finance a default sometime in 2014. And then whenever people talked about retirement or early retirement, people linked them over to financial independence. And then that kind of, they had an amazing FAQ, which is like the basics of the FI world, like what you need to think about, what people are talking about, what people recommend. And that, of course, led to places like Mr. Money Mustache and Early Retirement Extreme and a dozen of other blogs and just an endless stream of information available to consume. And I just ate it up as fast as I could.
Did you share that with Becky and she was on board right away, or did it take some convincing? Becky's shaking her head.
No, yeah. He kind of delved into it pretty intensely and started kind of explaining it to me a little bit. And it didn't make sense to me at all. And I actually really enjoyed my job at that time. So I wasn't like, the idea of quitting just sounded really, really strange to me. And especially like early, like I was like, oh, I'm going to be a nurse forever and this is going to be my life. So it took about a good year, I think, for you to kind of explain it to me. And it was more just him living the lifestyle you wanted to live and me just kind of looking at that and realizing, oh, this is actually kind of cool. And I started kind of increasing my career a little bit, and I became a charge nurse, and I was just increasing my responsibility at work, and I became really stressed out and really burnt out, and realized I don't think I want to do this forever. So that's when I'm like, I like this idea of walking away a little bit earlier. Yeah.
What time frame? Sorry, Scott. What timeline are we looking at here? Because you guys aren't 50 years old. You have graduated rather recently. When did you graduate from college? I'm sorry.
I graduated in 2012.
Okay.
Yeah, and then I was 1 year behind. So we're both 27 right now.
Yeah. So you haven't been working for a long time. I can hear people listening saying, you're not old enough to be burned out yet. But, being a nurse is really stressful. Let me tell you how stressful it is, Becky. But you're in charge of a lot of things, and I can totally see getting burned out. I've been burned out of jobs really quickly after starting. So, yeah, I guess being able to see how much fun it is to not do this and, oh, look, a stress-free lifestyle, that could be a big turnaround point. So how long did you work? 5 years? 6 years?
Yeah. So we got to Seattle. We lived there for about a year, and just as we mentioned, we kind of naturally saved money. And then at the beginning of 2014, we actually bought a townhouse in Seattle because we thought we'd spend a while there. And at least at the time, the mortgage payment for the equivalent rental was cheaper. So that was the only really math we did. And like, oh, that makes sense. We should get a house. And fortunately, it was like one of the best accidental investments we ever made, just because you could have bought anything in Seattle a few years ago and done very well. But that kind of, so we had our money saved for that. We bought the house, and then we discovered FI soon after that. And then we started setting up our finances like more efficiently to be like, oh, maybe we should be maxing out our 401ks. Maybe we should pay more attention to IRAs. Like maybe we should, or I guess it gave our savings a purpose. So we cut back a little bit on excessive things, just like buying new furniture all the time and stuff like that, like stuff we didn't really need to be spending money on. And
you act like we have like multiple series of furniture that we went through.
Well, we bought a house and then we filled it up pretty quickly. Yeah. But yeah, so we were naturally frugal, and then after discovering FI, after buying this house, like we actually had a purpose for our savings, and we just started making our whole financial world a lot more efficient and optimized for being able to retire early if we choose to.
Well, so let's get into that. What specifically was what specific efficiencies did you realize? You mentioned the 401k, but what can you give us maybe a rundown of what you were doing previously and what the change was once you began giving that purpose? Did your savings rate increase? Were you tracking it more? I don't know.
Yeah, the biggest thing was we just started writing down everything that we were spending. We both had a Mint account. I wasn't really super religious about it, but he was. And every month he would go through both of our expenses and kind of see where we were at and figure out exactly where all of our money was going. And we're like, oh, we spent a lot of money on this month. Maybe we should do that next month. Or we were just more conscious of it. And, being naturally frugal, it helped. And yes, we were able to move money around and put money into specific things. And he did a lot of research on investing, and yeah, that's pretty much it.
Yeah, so once we started putting money away, so when we first got to Seattle in 2013, we weren't tracking our expenses very much. It was just kind of making sure we were cash flowing every month, or we weren't spending more than we were making. We knew at least that much. And then at the time, we were putting in the minimum we could in our 401k to still get the match. So that was the standard advice we'd heard from people, at least get the match because it's free money. So we were doing that already. And then as soon as we discovered FI, we immediately bumped it up to the actual max, which is 18.5, or it was 18 a couple of years ago. So we were both doing that. And then we were both maxing out IRAs. And we both, or at least I had access to an HSA when we discovered FI. So I started maxing that out because it's the ultimate retirement account, as you may have read online. And and then beyond that, it was just putting money in a brokerage account and then just straight index funds all the way. So very standard FI. Everything is in either total U.S. market or total international market. So just all index funds as tax efficiently as we could do it.
Wow. Have we heard from anybody recently about index funds, Scott?
Yeah. No. Yes. What was the show number? We just had Jim Collins on the show, and he talked about
index funds.
Yes, all the great things behind index funds.
The grandfather of
index funds. That was show number 20. So BiggerPockets.com/moneyshow20. You can hear Jim's take on this. But yeah, it sounds like index funds were a good choice for you too.
Yeah. I mean, it's just the simplicity of it. I mean, there may be much better ways to invest, or even. So there's not guaranteed ways to get more, but there are ways to get more that you can put more time in. But just index funds is just so simple. We don't have to think about it. We just throw all our money in there and we're done. And we'll take the average. The average has done very well over the last 50 plus years, and we'll take it going forward. So that's all we need.
All right. So one thing I can hear, what's so great about your story is you just didn't make any mistakes. You got a full ride to college by playing your cards correctly in high school. You graduated debt-free. You got solid jobs, not crazy income. The 2 full-time college graduates getting a job at an average of $75K is not extraordinary income right out of school. And then you just saved and spent reasonably. Sounds like you bought a reasonable house and you're maxing out your 401k and you're putting all this stuff together. How much were you able to accumulate as a result of this over the period that you worked out of college?
So at the moment, we are not revealing our net worth. That's not public information. But I will say that, so how much income we were making out of college. And at that point, we were maybe saving 25 to 30%. And then over the next several years, we're able to ramp that up to about 75%. So a very high percentage of our salaries were going into index funds every year.
Wow, 75%.
Awesome.
Yeah. I like that. Sorry, Scott.
No, that's awesome. What I want to know is do you have any peers that got graduated around the same time and got similar levels of income and were not able to produce this result? And what did they do differently from you that maybe didn't allow them to get to where you are financially?
I would say our closest friend that also went to Purdue and also graduated, moved out to Seattle, also got a similar tech job and is on a similar path to us. I don't know if we have any close friends who graduated and moved across the country or even just found lucrative opportunities elsewhere. Yeah. And I guess the honest answer is I don't know what most of my friends' financial picture is. It's not something that comes up in normal conversation. So I don't know if they're saving or they're in crazy amounts of debt or what. But
Well, let's rephrase this then. Why are you guys so well off and so able to stockpile net worth and rapidly move towards financial independence, but most people that graduate with these types of degrees and have similarly paying jobs are not? What's the difference, do you think? Because you just described something that's not hard.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's just when people live a college lifestyle and they finally get that first paycheck and they're like, oh my God, I can live and I have money, and they want to spend it. And I think that's it's the American dream, right? To grow up with the white picket fence and the house and the nice car. And that's just what I think the world wants. But I mean, our outlook on it is just different.
Yeah, I think Becky hits on the big point. It's just lifestyle inflation. I think the majority of people that come out, whether they have a low-paying job or a high-paying job or anything in between, they just spend all of it, or sometimes even more if they go into debt, if they don't understand the long-term consequences of that. But like once we found this path, like we did get a couple of raises over the last 5 years when we were working. Like none of that like changed our lifestyle at all. Like we found a level of living that we were very comfortable with and that we could afford comfortably on our salaries. And we just never inflated it year over year, even if we were making more money.
Yeah,
love it. That's
fantastic. That's kind of hard to do when you see all of your friends doing the same, doing the opposite of what you're doing. So Scott said a moment ago, it sounds like you didn't make any mistakes. We had a guy on a couple of episodes ago, Tony Gayden, on episode 21, where he was describing he was telling his story, and it was just like obstacle after obstacle after obstacle keeps being thrown in his way, and he's like, get out of here, I'm gonna continue on my path and I'm not gonna let anything stop me. And it sounds like you guys really had an eye towards the future even when you were in high school. You've got this scholarship that, like, when did you discover the scholarship? You don't just get good grades and hope for the best, right? Like you'd known about this before.
Right. So my brother, my older brother, caddied as well. And we found out about the country club that we caddied at from a mutual family friend. And so that person got us into the club, and we started caddying. And my brother obviously found out about it before I did. He's 6 years older than me. So he got good grades, and he also got the scholarship and went to Northwestern in Illinois. And so, that was basically my goal starting as a caddy, was to get this scholarship. And, my parents, pushed me, and they really wanted me to work and do really well. And so, I definitely thank them for me getting that whole scholarship. And it just, that's how I found out about it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge shout out to my parents for just having the whole opportunity to start with, because my dad actually worked at the country club where I ended up caddying. And when I started, I had no concept of like tuition or college or what I wanted to be doing, because I started at like 13 years old. Mm-hmm. But at the time, it was just an amazing job, because, I mean, you would get outside, you carry a golf bag for like 4 or 5 hours, like walking the whole time. So you're getting a pretty good workout. You're outside, you're in the sun. And then you go home with like $20-$40 of spending money. Like, that's just awesome as a kid. Like, and then it's like, luckily I stuck with it, and they pushed me to like actually put the time in and take the steps needed to get the scholarship later on, once I realized how important that was. Mm-hmm. But at the beginning, I'm just happy they set me up with the opportunity. And I mean, I just loved it. Like, just being outside, being around golfers, because I golf myself, and just being outside, it was just a great summer job, regardless of the scholarship. And then that was an amazing boost at the end.
Yeah, same for me.
All right, so let's fast forward to the present. So you guys, you did it right. Like at every stage, there's no major obstacle. You eliminated every major obstacle to financial success, starting from this position of getting the scholarship. Then you went to college, you got employable degrees, you found good jobs out of there. You behaved reasonably and didn't spend too much out of college. You saved a good chunk of your income. And then what are you doing now? Can you tell us about like what are you doing right now, the last 3 months, that other people that didn't make those same choices are unable to experience?
What a leading question.
So
sounds like you're looking for a specific answer.
Yeah. So as of January this year, we are both unemployed and currently traveling across the country in what we're calling a gap year, or a mini retirement, to where Like we didn't make it fully to financial independence in 5 years, but we were on track to get there in maybe another 5 years. So we're maybe about halfway, somewhere around there. But we decided to just take this opportunity to where we were both looking to switch careers anyway, to just leave, travel for a while, like use that like amazing financial foundation that we built on the path to FI over the last 5 years, and just tap into that a little bit to like just have this amazing life opportunity to travel across the country for an entire year. So that is what we've been doing for the last 3 months.
So where have you gone specifically?
So we started in Seattle, obviously. We drove down the coast, and we have a dog. So we dropped off our dog with my sister in San Francisco. And she's graciously taking him for the year and loving it. And then we kept going down through California. We cut over through Arizona, New Mexico, Texas. We had a wedding in Austin, middle of March. So we were there, and then we kind of came back through New Mexico, Arizona, up through Utah. We did all the parks, national parks, state parks. And then now we're in Colorado, in Denver at the moment. And it's been a blast.
Yeah. So like we didn't start this trip with any like specific goals. Like we want to see all 50 states, or we want to see all national parks, or we want to see some crazy checklist to follow. Like we just wanted to be very relaxed. And so what we've been doing is just traveling, like on average, or not on an average day, but on days that we move from city to city, we'll maybe drive 3 or 4 hours to the next town that sounds cool. We'll check out national parks in the meantime. We'll visit with family and friends, like whenever we get the opportunity, if we're in the right part of the country. And it's just been amazing just to see so many parts of the country that we've never seen before. Mm-hmm. And yeah, it's just amazing.
So what is it like being unemployed after being employed for 5 years and, you know, going to college? And this is something that I think a lot of people struggle with. My husband struggled with this when he quit his job. He's like, oh, we reached the number well before he quit. And it was difficult for him to quit. And then once he did quit, he's like, oh my goodness, I should have done that sooner. I'm like, yeah, really? Wow. Amazing that nobody ever told you that. So how is it being unemployed for you?
It was honestly really hard at first. So I actually left my job back in August, and I had just recently gotten a promotion, and I was a supervisor of my unit, and which was really, 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 really struggling for me. It was very hard, and I got even more burnt out and more overwhelmed. And so when he finally told me to walk away, because it was making my life very hard, it was really easy after that. I'm like, oh my God, I feel so much better. And the 6 months leading up to our road trip, I sold all of our stuff. And that was my little mini job, was to get our life ready for this year. And it's been great. I mean, we wake up when we want to, and we basically can just do whatever we want to do. And I don't know. I don't hate it.
That sounds awful.
Yeah. So like Becky's situation, very, very hard to quit, to actually pull the trigger.
Yeah.
Being in the position she was and having so many people rely on her. But amazing once you actually did. Like no regrets of any kind. And then for me, like at least in big tech, like it's rare for people to stick around a company more than a couple years, which is a more modern phenomenon, or I don't know what. But at least like between all the big tech companies, like it was very rare for anybody to stick around more than a couple of years. And I was there for coming up on 5. So I was kind of due to switch anyway, just because usually you make more switching companies than getting promoted within for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. But so I was kind of ready for a transition anyway. And then Becky was burnt out. So I'm like, why don't we just both quit? It'll be fine. Like we've done most of the things right in our life up to this point. Like we have this opportunity. Let's take it.
Yeah, and it was a lot easier because, I mean, he's really good with the math and the numbers, and he like showed it to me in all of our spreadsheets, and he's like, look at what we have, look at what we can do, like we'll be fine. And so that did make it a little easier as well.
Yeah, and it doesn't hurt that we both have very employable jobs at the moment, to where we're very high demand professions. Yeah. So we don't think we'll have any trouble getting back into the workforce if that's what we decide to do.
Right.
So you guys are going to go. You're basically okay. So you've built a stockpile. You're taking a gap year. You're going to go right back to work whenever you feel like it, in some point in the next year or so, and then you're going to finish out the journey to financial independence. Maybe taking more gap years in between, basically at your, quote unquote leisurely pace that you as you want it over the next couple of years, right? You're just like, oh yeah, we'll achieve it if we ever want to buckle down and do it. But basically we're super happy right now, and we have just a ton of great options. I mean, what a fantastic situation. Let's switch this over to another topic of expertise that you've got, unless you have anything to add in that category, and talk about your travel hacking, because you guys are big travel hackers, right?
Yeah. Let me just touch on one thing before we move on. Like you said, like it's all very open-ended at this point. Like because we've built up this amount of money that's invested, like it will compound over time, regardless of what we do, as long as we're not draining it all. So like we have so much flexibility to where like if we want to go back to our full-time jobs and like grind through FI in the next 3 to 5 years and just be set for life, like we can totally do that. Or we could work part-time or remote or just any sort of non-traditional seasonal job or whatever else. Like we could both work part-time, cover our expenses, and then just let our nest egg grow over the next 10, 20 years and reach financial independence the slow way, or still very fast, I guess, relative to the rest of the world. But we don't have to really grind it out anymore now that we've set ourselves up on this great foundation.
Wow. That's a really amazing quote. I'm going to write that down.
I love it. Hey, doesn't everyone do this?
That's fantastic. Okay. Now let's talk about how you are paying for your travel. You just write checks all the time, right?
Yes, let's talk travel hacking. We just put it all in credit
There you go.
cards.
That's the best way to do it. So I actually was told this by a friend once. He said, "Oh, I just do what I want. I'll put it on the credit card. I'll figure out how to pay for it later." I'm like, "Ooh, that's not me at all." So tell me how you handle this with just putting it on the credit card and you'll figure out how to pay for it later.
Yeah, pretty much. No, so about the same time we discovered financial independence about 3-4 years ago, we also discovered this idea of travel hacking or churning credit cards. Basically signing up for credit cards just to get the sign-up bonus and then moving on to another credit card, because there's dozens of credit cards out there to where they will give you a reward of $500 to $1,000, either cash or just in various travel currencies that are cash equivalent in some way, for signing up for the credit card and then spending $1,000, $2,000, maybe $3,000 in the first 3 months of having it. So it's not like you're giving them $3,000. You're just doing your regular spending, paying it off every month. And then at the end of reaching this spending minimum, you get this huge travel sign-up bonus. So we discovered this, back in 2014. We signed up for a couple cards because, I mean, when you first hear this, it's like way good to be true, or like way too good to be true. Like all of my alarm bells are going off to be like, this can't be right. So, I mean, we just started slow. We got a credit card. We met the sign-up bonus. We got the magical airline miles. We actually booked a flight and then took the flight. And then we'd done everything front to back. We earned the miles. We signed up for the credit card, earned the miles, spent the miles. And everything worked. It just worked. So we decided, as soon as we realized it was legit, we just scaled it up rapidly. So in the past 3-4 years, we've signed up for 70 different credit cards, all with a sign-up bonus. And then that is like heavily subsidized our travel over the past several years, including our honeymoon. And then it's helping us a ton on this trip, just paying for hotels, because the majority of where we're staying during this road trip adventure is in hotels. And then in between that, we mix in some camping and staying with family and friends. So that's been a huge subsidy to our lodging expenses on this trip.
How much is this year going to cost you, do you think? Like, what's your estimate for like total expenses? Are you like, are you leaving your house vacant, or did you sell that, or how's that working?
So we rented out the townhouse. We got a property manager just because we didn't want to have to deal with it on the road. So he has been great and taking care of it for us. He found us tenants, and it's been they've been living there for about a month and a half, 2 months,
something
maybe.
Like that. Yeah.
So we're getting a little bit of income.
Yeah, so we don't really make much profit off of it, but it does cover all of our expenses.
Yeah.
And we don't have to worry about it. And as the Seattle market keeps appreciating, so don't jinx that. But
so we'll just let them pay our mortgage for the next year or so, and then figure it out after that. But I mean, we've also been tracking our expenses still on the road, so we know how much we've spent, and if we, extrapolate that out over a year, it's going to be under 50 grand, which is way less than what we spent in Seattle.
Yeah, so we're currently averaging about 3,500 per month, give or take. And then like, I think this month will actually get less as we kind of like find our rhythm and get a little more efficient with things, stay with friends and all that.
Yeah.
It looks like it'll cost us somewhere between 35 grand and 45 grand, something like that, which is amazing considering the lowest we ever spent in Seattle was like 65 grand for a year. So like living on the road is actually going to be cheaper than living in one place in Seattle.
Yeah.
So that's so far so good. I mean, there's a lot of unknowns with our expenses as we keep going, but we've been on the road for 3 months. We have a pretty good feel for it. And yeah, it's right around 40 grand or so is what we're expecting the total year to cost us.
Wow. That's awesome. I want to touch back on these 70 credit cards that you opened up. That's 70, not 17, not 17. It's 70 credit cards that you've opened up.
Correct.
And that's between
the two of you.
Yeah.
Okay, so 35 and 35. How does that affect your credit score? Yeah. And do you need your credit score for anything since you've already bought a house, you're on this path to FI, you're not really looking to accumulate a lot of things, or I'm assuming you don't have a car loan, or you do and you're not looking to get another one. Like, how does that affect your credit score?
I'm glad you asked, because that is the number one question whenever I tell anybody that we sign up for a bunch of credit cards. But amazingly, I mean, the short version is that no, it doesn't hurt your credit as long as you use the cards responsibly. So, I mean, like having having more accounts is actually better for your credit. So that's a plus. The one thing it does hurt is your average age of accounts as you keep getting more. But I mean, we can just tell you from experience, like we started with credit scores in like the low 700s a few years ago, when we know our credit score because we got a mortgage at that time. And then over the past 4 years, it's grown to like the very high 700s, even bumping 800 every once in a while, depending on who you ask. But as long as you're using the cards responsibly, paying them off on time every month, it's really not going to ding your credit at all. And I can say that a lot of people don't believe that, but at least one anecdote I can provide is that a couple years into doing this, so after we'd both opened at least a dozen cards, probably closer to 20, we actually refinanced our house to both remove PMI and get a lower interest rate. And we had no problem doing that despite having 20 credit cards in the past couple of years, or 20 new accounts in the past couple of years, and having a few new accounts in the past like month or two before we actually applied for the refinance. And the lender basically just said, why did you sign up for these cards? And we just said we signed up for travel rewards, and that was the end of it. That was all they asked. So, and yeah, we got refinanced perfectly fine, no issues. And we actually opened a HELOC just as kind of a backup emergency fund before we started this trip. And the same thing, like we'd opened a dozen or more cards in the last year and still had no problem opening this new line of credit.
What I suspect is happening is when you open a new credit card, it usually is like a 1 to 2 or point ding on your overall
score. Yes, a very small ding for the hard inquiry. And then as you get all those new payments and the new accounts, your score goes up over the next 3 months or so.
Yeah, and because you guys are young and still working on establishing credit, your age of credit history, your on-time payments percentage, all that stuff is just continue creeping up. And so that is just a completely negligible impact on your credit score. So the trade-off obviously is, yes, there's like a very small one-time impact when you open up a card, but that can get completely overwhelmed by the utilization rate of your cards, the number, your on-time payments, all that kind of stuff. And I've been doing this for a little bit. I've seen my credit score continuing to climb, even though I'm opening these cards. So
that's a great way to describe it. That's it.
I would like to share a little story with everybody who's listening. A few months ago, maybe 6 months ago, I told Scott about this concept of travel hacking, and I recommended that he listen to the Choose FI podcast, episode 9, I believe, is where they spell it all out. They spent a whole episode on this. And Scott said, no, I've got a cashback card that gives me 1%. I'm pretty good. I'm like, well, okay. Well, I'll just drop it. And then all of a sudden, Scott comes in one day and he said, I just listened to Choose FI episode number 9 and it was amazing. And oh my goodness, I have been doing this all wrong and I can't wait to start this. And I'm sorry, Scott, did you just earn a big travel reward recently?
I have the companion pass now, and it's great. And
the Holy Grail.
I don't understand the economics behind this because, I can see how, like, if someone opens the card and they spend too much or they are late on their payments or whatever, that, okay, I guess the credit card company can make some money off of it. But I just don't see, like, I spent close to like $3,000 on this credit card, got my, like, maybe just a little over $3,000, got 60,000 Southwest points, then did the same thing on another card for 50,000 and have 110,000 miles, get the companion pass. That's like what? Thousands and thousands of dollars in travel.
Absolutely.
Cost me $195 in terms of 2 one-time annual fees, which I probably won't renew. Like how does that math work economically for the other guy?
Who cares?
Right?
I thought the exact same thing as you. And when we first started doing this, I'm like, this is illegal, right? Like this has got to be, we're doing something wrong. Like we're going to get arrested. This is crazy. And he's like, no, there are so many people that are not paying off their cards on time. And that's just where the credit card companies are getting their profit from. I mean, there's such a minor amount of people doing what we're doing that it doesn't affect.
Yeah, like one of the ways I like to describe it is that there's a bunch of banks out there offering this bet that you can take. They're going to bet you 2 free flights that you can't handle credit responsibly. Oh. And if you win the bet, then you get the flights or the hotels or whatever else. Yeah. And I mean, there are a dozen different banks offering this in a dozen different ways. And if you can handle credit, if you can be responsible with it, then there's a lot of money and travel opportunities to be had.
Oh, so true.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me. Yeah, that like Noah, like you, I just didn't believe it at first for a while because it didn't make like basic. Like, this is not a fundamental component of wealth building. This doesn't make any sense. This has got to be like a one-time little trick. I'm not interested. But no, it seems like it's pretty scalable for now, at least. And yeah. So can you give maybe some of the listeners some tips on where to start if they're interested in travel rewards? We've already recommended Choose FI episode 9, the podcast, but. What are some of your tips? That's a
great place to start, just for kind of an introduction. My advice is always, because I mean, if this idea is new to you or you haven't tried it, I'm sure you don't believe it's true. Like, why would it be? It doesn't make any sense. But there are a lot of people that have done it. And all I tell people is just start small. Just find one card with a sign-up bonus that you'll be able to use. Sign up for it, get the bonus, and then either use it or at least understand the process of how to use those points. Mm-hmm. And then you can decide whether or not it's for you. I mean, it's not for everybody. It does require some organization and staying on top of your cards and being able to cancel them after a year to avoid annual fees and stuff like that. But just start small, get one card like any other adult does. Sign up for one credit card with a sign-up bonus. Get the sign-up bonus, and then once you understand the process, if you want to scale it up, go for it. Like, there's a lot of room to scale it up, and then if you don't, that's fine. Like, you don't have to. It's not a requirement by any means, but there's a lot of opportunity out there if you're organized and put the time in.
Yeah, I want to add to this. Keep track of your dates. Like your 1 year date. Mm-hmm. A lot of times, if you call up to cancel, the company will waive the renewal fee if you called up too late, but you really want to try and keep track of those dates and cancel beforehand. And keeping track of your cards is super important. Noah, you said that. And we actually missed out on one of these huge bonuses because we opened up 2 cards at the same time. We were in the middle of a home remodel, so getting the spend wasn't difficult. We just didn't keep track of it, and we put too much on one card and not enough on the other. So we got the match on, or the bonuses on the one card, but we totally missed out on the bonuses on the other card for like $400 or something. So one thing we do is when we only open up one card at a time now. So we'll open up the card. Mm-hmm. I'll put that in my wallet, and that is my go-to card for gas and groceries and, kids' expenses, and anything that I have to charge goes on that one card. And then towards the end of, once I figure out that I've used my spend, then I'll go back to, like, I have a plain old credit card that I use all the time, my Costco Visa or whatever. It has a lot of really great benefits. And one of the things that these cashback cards don't offer is not cashback cards, the rewards cards. They don't offer the cashback option. And the credit card that I use all the time is like 5% off on gas or something, and 3% on all your Costco purchases. I can't remember what all the numbers are. Don't take that as gospel. But so that's a great everyday card. But then when I'm trying to spend $3,000, I've got 2 kids and a household, like that's really easy. You just put it in your wallet and go. So definitely keep track of your cards, and starting small is a really great piece of advice too, because I'm kind of a jump in with both feet kind of girl. So I will, I can sign up for 27 credit cards. Well, I can't spend 27 times $3,000 in 3 months. I mean, I could, but do you have any tips for people who are, maybe not sure that they know they could pay it off, they just don't have that much to spend?
There's a lot of ways to basically manufacture spend. I mean, if you just Google credit card manufactured spend, you'll get a lot of ideas. Some of them are shadier than others. But one thing that we tell people that's very, very simple to do and very easy is that if you don't think you'll meet the spend on a card in the 3 months, just buy a gift card to a place that you go all the time. Grocery store is the most common. Like you can go buy a Kroger gift card or a Walmart gift card or Target gift card. And then you'll basically front load the spend on the credit card, get it done in time, and then you just use the gift card after that until it's empty. And another thing you can do is prepay your utilities. So, I mean, you're going to keep paying utilities for a long time, so you can just send them a payment for $300-$400, and then that'll just cover your next several months. But it all hits the credit card during that minimum spend period. So those are a couple small tips.
I've never heard of prepaying your utilities. Oh, that's awesome. Oh, I'm so excited. I'm so glad I asked.
Yeah.
Well, awesome. Do you have anything else to add maybe about your story or about the credit cards before we move on to the famous four?
You got anything? I think that's it. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, these 4 questions are the same questions that we ask every guest. There's actually 5 of them because Scott doesn't know how to count. Actually, I think Josh and Brandon don't know how to count on the original podcast. But these are our famous 4 questions. And the first one is, what is your favorite finance book?
I would say my favorite finance book is Your Money or Your Life, because it's the one that really just put in perspective that your hours are valuable. Like the time you have left on this earth or the time you have in general is very valuable. And it's important to look at how much time you're spending earning money versus what you're actually getting with that money. Like how many hours you're putting towards each purchase you make was a very big concept that really stuck with me. So that's definitely the one I go with.
That's an awesome book.
Love it. I earlier mentioned that you didn't make any mistakes, but did you make any mistakes? And if so, what was your biggest money mistake that you've made?
Well,
so I wouldn't call it a mistake. And as you said, like there's no big ones. I mean, like as we mentioned, when we first got to Seattle, we weren't maxing out our retirement accounts. Like we weren't optimally investing in index funds, but those aren't really mistakes. Those are just small optimizations. The only thing that could be considered a mistake is that so as I mentioned, I work at Amazon and a lot of my compensation was in the form of Amazon stock. And I did what the smart thing was, which was to sell it and buy index funds, because it's important to diversify away from your employer. At least that's the general advice out there is you don't want your salary and for us, our housing and all of our investments tied to the exact same company. So I sold them, bought index funds. And I mean, if you go look at the historical performance of Amazon over the last 3-4 years, that was a terrible mistake with perfect hindsight. Yeah. But I mean, I would totally do it again because I still think it is the smart choice for most people who are rewarded in their own company's stock.
No, so, I think that's very smart. I think, but the way you just described it and the way you're thinking about it is very smart, because you're saying I have my philosophy in wealth building and I stick to that philosophy and it's sound and it's well researched and I know I'm doing the right thing. Got unlucky right on this one. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, even though it's obviously there was a opportunity cost there for at that particular company doing really well.
Yes, with perfect hindsight, of course I would keep them, but like you said, I stand by what we did and I still think it's the right financial move.
I will throw out one word: Enron.
Yes.
There exactly. were a lot of Enron employees who got the Enron stock and kept it, and their spouses worked at Enron and everything was wrapped up in Enron, and then all of a sudden Enron is worth nothing, so all their retirement plans are gone. And this wasn't just one person, this was a significant chunk of Enron employees, because the company culture there was just so pro Enron. So it's great to sit here now when Amazon is up 1,000% or 12,000% or whatever, but it could have just as easily gone the other way. So yeah, absolutely smart.
listeners, if you're interested in learning more about Enron, there's a really good documentary called Enron, The Smartest Guys in the Room, which I think was on Netflix pretty recently, but it may not be anymore. But
I think I watched it on Amazon Prime. So it's
there it is. Yeah.
That was a couple years ago, though.
Throwing out the plugs.
So that's a fascinating,
Yes.
story.
Yeah. When did that go down? Like 2000, early 2000s? I remember listening to that on the news and just thinking like, I'm so sad for all these people. Like people who were a year away from retirement are now 50 years away from retirement and unemployed and like they're same with their spouse. It was really devastating for a lot of people. Okay.
Yeah, it's a good story to know.
It's a good story to know.
For sure.
And yeah, not every company turns out as amazing as Amazon. Jeff's a pretty smart guy though. What is your best piece of advice for people who are just starting out?
Yeah, I would say just track your expenses. Figure out exactly where your money's going and what you're spending your money on. You know, not many people realize, oh, I spent like $5 a day on coffee or, you know, this much on alcohol or something like that. And then they kind of realize where it's all going and then they can figure out what to do from there.
Yeah, just to add to that, I mean, like, it's amazing how many people just don't know where their money's going. And like the best way to do it, like, especially if you're just starting out, is just track without any judgment. Like, just write it all down. Don't think about whether it was good or bad or whatever else. Just track it. And then after a month or maybe 2 or 3 months, like, go back and look at it and see, does this spending match my values? Like, is this where I want my money to be going now and in the future? And then adjust accordingly.
Yeah, that's great. Track without judgment. I love that. Okay, Scott.
That's exactly what I do with my spending, by the way, is I don't like keep a budget, but I just review it and I'm like, you know what? Last month I spent way too much money on beer.
And wings.
That's not my values, right? Yeah, and wings. Well, I like wings. But like that's not my values. So, yeah. You know, like, okay, I can change that. And I think that's exactly right. It's not, I don't keep a budget. I just react if I'm getting out of hand in any one category that is not reflective of my values.
We're the same way. It's totally just reactive. We've never actually spent like, this is how much we're going to spend on restaurants every month. Like, we know about what it'll be based on past months, but then we just try to keep it in our minds and just spend consciously, like, as we go, without having a specific number in mind.
Love it. All right, what's your favorite joke to tell at parties?
Would you like to go first?
You can go first.
Oh, okay. You have two?
We both have one. Yeah, you're gonna love them. Okay. So, why did the old lady fall in a well?
I don't know. Why?
She didn't see that well.
You didn't love that, Scott? That's such a joke for you.
Well, I'm just coming up with my retort. You know, those kind of jokes drain me.
Oh. I will say that I am continually impressed with how Scott just comes up with these really awful retorts very quickly.
I really do that really well,
oh,
don't
God,
I?
I quit.
So.
Yes, yeah.
There it is.
Okay. Why did the hipster burn his mouth?
I don't know why.
Because he ate his dinner before it was cool.
I like that one. Alrighty, we had two jokes.
Two jokes.
Mindy, I was the exact same way. I was laughing for like 5 minutes after I heard that. I'm like, I can't stop laughing. It's so funny.
And I very rarely laugh at these jokes. See my response to Noah's joke. Sorry, Noah.
Yes.
Okay, Becky and Noah, where can people find out more about you?
So the easiest way is just on the blog. So I write a blog at Money Metagame. That's just kind of been tracking our financial journey and adding in various travel hacking, credit card tips here and there, and all sorts of fun stuff. So you can find me there, moneymetagame.com. And then I'm also on Twitter at Money Metagame, all one word. And then ever since we started this trip, so for the past few months, we've been posting awesome pictures of all the amazing national parks and everywhere else we've been to Instagram. And that's also just at Money Metagame. So follow us wherever. I'm almost always online in one form or another, so feel free to reach out.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for your time today. I know you're busy doing nothing for the next year, so
so
I really appreciate you earmarking some time for us. And thank you for sharing your travel hacking. I learned a new travel hacking tip. I'm super excited. Now I'm going to go sign up for another credit card.
Awesome.
No, thanks for having us. This has been fun.
Yeah, this has been great. Thanks.
So where are you guys going next on your travels?
We are heading south to Colorado Springs. Noah has some cousins there that we're going to spend some time with. And after that, we're going to head east towards Nashville. And that's about all we have planned.
Stop a few cities in between. We should mention that we're currently in Denver at the BiggerPockets headquarters.
We are.
So happen to be passing through. I'm glad you guys could have us over. But yeah, so we're heading east. We got family in the Midwest, so we'll definitely spend a lot of time with them this summer. But yeah, one of the best parts about this trip is that we have no specific place to be, so we only plan a couple weeks in advance, and we just go with the flow.
Awesome. I'm really jealous. I am married to a planner who, we've got a trip coming up, so he's got 27 books from the library. Ooh, what are the 17,000 things we have to do in the 12 hours that we're in, whatever location? I'm like, we could just relax. We could just wing it.
See, that's how we started this trip. We're like, oh my God, what do we have to do today? And like the first 2 weeks of our trip, we were so tired. We're like, we have done everything in these 2 weeks that somebody would probably do in a full year. So after that, we're like, let's do something one day, take a day off, do something one day. So
good plan.
Yeah, I totally get what you're saying. Yeah.
Okay. Well, enjoy Colorado Springs. Make sure you see the Garden of the Gods. That's a great place.
Yes.
We're
okay.
excited.
We will talk to you soon. Have a safe trip.
Good.
Thanks.
Guys. Bye.
Bye.
All right, that was Becky and Noah from moneymetagame.com. Mindy, what'd you think?
Oh my goodness. I love talking to Becky and Noah. Their story is fantastic. They're so smart. They're so forward thinking, and they're just such nice people. And I wish I would have had the foresight back when I was 27 to, save up a huge ton of money. I was not making the kind of salaries that they're making at age 27. I wasn't married. I didn't have any kids. And I had a very different life than they did. And I'm excited for them. And their gap year sounds like super fun, especially the whole part about not making any plans. I'm kind of jealous about that. I'm still trying to convince Carl to stop planning every minute of our vacations.
Yeah, I'm jealous. I would love to do something like that within the next couple of years. Maybe I will. And I just, again, like I said in the intro, that's the why, is having the option and ability to do that. And good for them for giving themselves every advantage on this journey so that they could, and taking advantage of opportunities so that they could put themselves in this position.
Yeah, that is amazing. That is absolutely perfect. Today, Scott, before we get out of here, since this episode is running a bit long today, I would like to throw in a couple of requests to our listeners. If you could, if you're listening and you're enjoying the show, please subscribe to the podcast on whatever podcast player you choose to listen to. You can subscribe on iTunes. We're on pretty much everything: SoundCloud, Stitcher, Podcast Addict, like every place you can find a podcast, you will find us. And we have very few Twitter followers for the BiggerPockets Money Podcast Twitter handle. So if you would please throw out a follow on Twitter. It's at BP Money Show on Twitter. We are at BiggerPockets Money on Instagram. I am at Mindy at BP on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. And Scott, can you share your social media handles?
Mine is at STrenchBP. However, I am not particularly active on Twitter. So follow me if you like. You're going to see my last post from 20 December 2017. So there might be a new one coming, and you'll get notified when you follow me.
All right, Scott, shall we get out of here today?
Let's get out of here.
Okay, for episode 23 of the BiggerPockets Money Show, this is Mindy Jensen, over and out.